All right, so with our handsome Mr. O, you ready, sir? So I know you were mentioning that you're having some construction going on near your home, and Mr. O has been a bit overwhelmed by it. So I would highly recommend create, if he's doing okay inside the home, you may still find that doing like a noisemaker or putting the TV on, things that don't already create overwhelmed feelings. So if, like, let's say your dog didn't love certain television programs, I wouldn't put those on while also dealing with construction sounds or noises. With Mr. O right now, we're just warming up with a couple little find its just to get him up and moving while I'm blabbing. So what I would recommend is there is a Spotify playlist that has a whole bunch of different sounds available. So typically if you do like dog desensitization playlists, this means though, if you do have certain sounds that are already flustering to him, I wouldn't start with those. So if, let's say, construction noises are already really spooky, maybe you'd pick wind chimes or, rustling leaves or whatever sounds they have available that are not so challenging. You'd want to go ahead and pair the funny noise with fun, easy things he likes to do. So if he likes Kongs or puzzle toys, or if he loves Find Its, you could have, like, let's say, wind chimes playing at a soft enough volume where he notices but doesn't get, chewing is optional, where he notices it but doesn't get overwhelmed. If, for example, we went right into like the spooky thing, like let's say thunder sounds, and we're playing thunder noises while your babe is just cowering and not taking food or not feeling comfortable, that would be a flooding situation where your babe's actually not getting more comfortable with every time you do it, but more uncomfortable. And it might even lead to learned helplessness. So that's a situation where no matter what your dog does for communication, nobody listens, or we punish or scold the responses. And now your pup, no matter what they think they can try, none of it works, so they just give up. So that's something we want to avoid. So we're working just a couple of these little find its. He's like, oh my gosh, I don't know where that last one flew. But with those sounds, you could then pair it with lick items. So a lick mat, a Kong. If you like snuffle mat work, like doing some nose sniffing and finding of snacks or crumbs and foraging, those are all ways to actually raise your puppy's serotonin and dopamine while also lowering their can't talk today, cortisol levels, which is a stress hormone. So I'm not saying that we're going to be able to take away all the stressors in the world, but how we deal with certain situations either makes that setup easier for your puppy as they develop and mature, or it creates a more negative association with maybe more fear responses or reactivity down the road. So for some puppies, certain sounds, if again you can't avoid them, for some pups, going out and making the sessions very brief and then also bringing very high value food could be a moment where from afar, depending on I know the lay of the land, I'm not sure of. So depending on how close or how far you can get to that thing, the more distance you have, the better. But also the more you can kind of keep your puppy moving, the less they feel trapped in the setup. So even though, yes, the construction might be off in the distance, if he feels he just has to stand there and hopefully get more comfortable, that would be a moment where that could be more flooding. Sometimes what we would be working on would be what's called counter conditioning, which is where you would pair something your babe really enjoys, they can feel comfortable offering, they like doing it, with, let's say, that thing as far away in the distance where they can notice it, but be well under threshold and feel safe while getting those exposures. Exposure training, as some people will call it, or, again, bringing them to conquer their fears is not what I recommend. That's again like me saying, oh, I know that you got assaulted on the subway. Why don't we go do that and get you over it by practicing the assault over and over, even though it's just pretend. You might think, lady, you're insane. But this is where we as people sometimes think, well, my dog is scared of people. Why don't I just set them up where they go to Kimball's over and over and just deal? And that doesn't change emotional responses, because no matter how many times you've done it, the dog still feels scared, overwhelmed, and typically their whispers are not listened to. So then behavior tends to get bigger. I'm not saying this is what we're doing with our handsome Mr. Man over here, Mr. O, but we want to make sure that even while we're practicing and doing some training moments and experiences for him, that it's still within his comfort range and he's still showing us signs that he's comfortable and attainable of those skills. So when he goes to jump, no big deal. Remember that sometimes your puppy being like, I'd like another, and it's up high, so he's trying to meet me halfway. It could also be a little bit of like, I'm a little bit apprehensive or a little bit nervous. There are some construction noises today in the building too, so there's been some good exposure, but within his comfort range. He's also pooped out because he was doing some romping and wrestling, so he's panting, he's a little bit exhausted. So, but I wanted to dive into also with those noises is maybe you practice again, like I mentioned, with the Spotify playlist or even YouTube, find some soft, novel noises that don't equal a fear response and start pairing, let's say, doorbell noises, if those are not scary, or wind chimes or jingling keys with then some of these easy skills. So you could be doing like, let's say, for example, a little hand touch, yes, and then feed throughout some of that as those noises are playing at a very low volume. So with Mr. O, we're going to do a little bit with maybe some loose leash walking. If you still have questions or concerns with the noises, Happy Hounds Dog Training has an awesome video series on noise phobia. I'm not saying that's where we're at quite yet, but it could go there. So I would highly recommend to take a peek-see over some of the Happy Hounds content. Her training videos are awesome. He's like, I heard my boyfriend Alston sing. So we might go into a little find it there as he heard his woo-woo from a buddy. So with our loose leash walking, even with no gear on, I would recommend pick a side that you'd like your puppy to work on, stick to that one for a few little reps, and then you might switch to the other side when you're ready. So he fell right out of his mouth. So let's say now we're going to try this side for a few moments. I would feed these great little situations where he's by the leg. If sometimes when you're practicing, you're feeding across the body, but the puppy cuts in front of you, remember that from his perspective, sometimes where he's getting fed might be the behavior you want from him. So you'll see that when puppies make mistakes, I do not like to scold or reprimand them for attempting to try to understand what the heck the crazy human would like from them. Remember, think about your puppy as a furry little exchange student that has no idea what's expected of them verbally, culturally, or physically. So if I assume he has no idea what the heck I'm talking about, me yelling at him for jumping up or getting agitated with him won't teach him what not to do. It'll just teach him that at times I am spooky, overwhelming, or threatening. So right here, a little distraction because there could have been a crumb. Nice. 2, if he is taking food a little hard at times, that could be, again, some excitement or some, big feelings. You can always, again, feed flat palms. So what I like to do is, I don't know, my hand's completely slimy. He's been drinking. Put your food in your hand, and then I like to cover it with my thumb. So the food is still there. I love there's a hair involved, but that's typical. So then you could get your puppy's attention on your hand, get them to focus in on that food for a moment, and then when you're ready, you would just move your thumb out of range, and then your puppy can eat the snack off your hand. So again, just to show, the other option too is, again, here he is, feed him. So now my hand is flat and he's not eating your fingertips. I know we did mention this a few moments ago earlier for Mr. A as well. So when that mouth becomes a bit harder, it can also be a barometer to how they're feeling. So if you're finding that your puppy is taking food really hard and they're normally pretty soft, their comfort range may not be there, or the environment's becoming too overwhelming or too stimulating. So over arousal could be also a situation where your puppy would start to get a harder mouth. Ready? So right now he just hears his little friend playing in the little corralled section where the desk is, because we have Mr. B over there working his little things, just hanging out. Excuse me, sir. A little bit of a drunken sailor sometimes for Mr. O. So if I lose him right there, I might do my little kissy noise to gain his attention back on me and work a few more little reps. Good job, sir. So maybe what we'll do is, I know we did work a few weights for Mr. A earlier. I want to do a couple lovely maybe stay positions for a moment. So we'll get a little sit from this handsome guy. He's like, but I'm so excited. I feel like he's got a little dot on him. I just make sure it's nothing yucky, like the ticks are still out and about. Oh yes, it is a little tick. Gross. So I'm just going to plop this guy into one of my poop bags real quick. Sorry for the interruption. So even though, again, fall is on its way, and there is some cooler weather coming here and there, remember obviously that ticks are still out in swarms. They want to try to get their last few delicious meals, and it doesn't matter who the meal might be. I'm just going to plop this tick in here so we can't have him scuttle away and get into trouble somewhere else. 2, guys, if you already do a tick medication from your vet, then that's fine, no worries. If you don't do, those types of options, there are some really great more homeopathic options too that don't interact or interfere with if you are doing more of a medical like grade or topical item from the vet or from whoever you get your goodies from. So there's a brand called You Tick Me Off, Mad About Organics. There's a few different brands, and these are again bug sprays that are safe for your puppy. Some of them are even safe for cats or kittens, and then also for people use as well. So obviously you'd want to check with the brand and see what it says. But these are normally plant-based products that then create an outer shield so those ticks don't even want to climb up onto the puppies. Two, if your pup has a shorter coat, one of my other tricks that I've seen done and that I kind of like for some pups is to, after you go for an outing or you're out and about and you think there could be some ticks, is take a lint roller and lint roll the puppy a little bit. But if they're not used to that, don't just go ahead and try to assault them with a lint roller. But it can be helpful to get them comfortable with novelty. And I'm not saying to flood them with the situation, but the lint roller can actually pick up the loose ticks that are now just crawling on them, and you might get a couple loose hairs as well. But in general, what you're going to be able to do is pick up the ones that haven't quite crawled into the coat or have become attached. So the bug sprays could be a nice option, the lint roller, and thankfully he's a white dog for the most part, so you can see them pretty nicely on him. No offense to Mr. B, he's a black lab, a little bit more challenging. So, but if you're confused or not sure what to try, feel free to check in if you're not sure what products to give a try to. So I'm just going to plop this off to the side, even though it's quite amazing. Of course, yum, gross ticks. So let's say we're going to work a bit with stay. We were working earlier with Mr. A, and this is why sometimes working and seeing the videos throughout the whole session can be nice. But if, again, you only have time for your puppy's videos, that's fine. But I would recommend to watch all of them. And typically it starts from like the top is the new one, all the way to the bottom is like the last one in the series. So you can kind of see them in order. So let's say Mr. O, we're going to practice a bit with stay. We've got some truck noises. I don't know if you can hear it over the mic. And then we have some other lovely noises in the building. So I'm going to tell my dog to stay. So open palm stay is normally what I do. Mr. A says, worst day ever. I heard the funny truck. So I'm going to feed Mr. O between his little front legs and feed for that sort of being stuck. So if in the beginning, like I know we've mentioned the 3 Ds of training, so like your duration, your distraction levels, and your distances, is I normally like to start off with duration. So I should not be drinking seltzer. Very sorry. But I love my bubbles. So let's say Mr. O is working a bit with duration. If, let's say, me adding too much distance and then there's already other things happening, you may find your duration. So like he got up and broke for a second, he may only be able to handle maybe 1 to 3 seconds. If, let's say, that is too difficult for him, a spam call, there we go, get rid of you. So let's say that's too difficult, you might do every 1 second. So we're gonna get that little sitting position. I'm gonna feed him for that. I'm gonna ask him for this gorgeous down, and then I'm gonna feed him on the floor in between his front feet. I'm gonna tell him to stay. If, let's say, sits are easier for him than a down, start whichever. So, but if, let's say, I was looking for that down, I'm just gonna ask for the down again, feed for that little response. And then I might see if I can get him to hold it with a little stay and feed several snacks, more rapid fire, while he's in this down stay. So because if you find he wiggles a lot, this is also your puppy saying, I either don't understand, I'm feeling overwhelmed, maybe I'm a little more comfortable in a sitting position, whatever, again, is going on, help them through it. So right here, I might go, Ozzy, 10. Gorgeous. Do a little recall for this gorgeous guy. Now we're going to get maybe a sitting position. He's like, hold on, my brain melted. If you find he's a little bit more disjointed or not as focused, remember to keep your training session short. I know here sometimes they're just getting tired because there's the novel environment, there's the classmates, there's the new sights and sounds. So if he's a little bit unsure, we're going to get him up and wiggling, and then I'll go back to that other behavior. So in your practice, don't forget to keep your criteria low and attainable, because right now it's almost like we're learning the ABCs before we're expecting someone to be able to read the novel. So with Mr. O right now, if let's say being stationary was too challenging, I might practice again with him with being near my side and feed for those gorgeous responses. So if let's say loose leash walking is more attainable for him right now than being stationary, no big deal. If you don't ever feel like you can have flex or be able to change your agenda for your training moment, you're probably going to lead into a lot of frustration for both you and your puppy. So even though you may have wanted to work, let's say, for example, those stays, but your puppy just can't fathom staying still for right now, work some skills that involve movement. So right now, instead, we're deciding to work a little bit with some of our loose leash walking before maybe we go into working some of those stays. If, let's say, this was going really pretty, we might go into a little find it and work maybe a couple recalls. So Ozzy, come. Yes. So, because if we're not flexible or we're very rigid in our, goals, then a lot of times that equals a lot of frustration from our end because the puppy isn't listening. They're not doing what I told them. Remember that your puppies are never trying to be jerks or opinionated or, give you the bird, in other nicer ways. So, but your pup is only able to respond to things in the way a dog would. So if he is unable to understand something, maybe it could look like disobedience. Maybe it could look like reactivity, fear, aggression. So remember that if your puppy's struggling, think, what could I do to help him be more set up for success? And then maybe what could we do that's maybe more attainable, and have we actually practiced those skills? So there's plenty of times where people say like, oh, my puppy knows how to do something. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is your puppy might be able to offer something in a vacuum-like state. So what I mean by that, your kitchen, your living room, your yard with almost zero distractions. Sure, maybe the puppy does an amazing sit stay. Now all of a sudden you change up a couple little moments within that factor of the environment or the distraction level or the distance or whatever. Your babe has maybe not even actually generalized the skill. So if your babe, let's say, for example, really understood sit and what it means, they'd be able to offer a sit anywhere with different varieties of distractions, with different durations and different distances. But if they can only do sit while they're sitting in front of you and you've done your little hand signal and you've got a snack nearby, then that might be the only way they view sit. So when you ask it out of that context, it doesn't make sense. So remember, we want to slowly include generalization so your puppy can start to work these skills in many different little venues where they're still feeling safe to do so. So right here, he's a little distracted with the environment. Ozzy, come. So right now there's a little bit of a nice smell in the corner of the room. I said his name. I asked for the recall. Let's say there's no response. I'm not going to say it over and over. So he might be like, hold up, lady, there's some really nice smells. So right here, Ozzy, come. Yes. So if, let's say, I didn't get his focus, I would have gone a little bit closer and tried from that second point. He actually turned to look at me, so I was able to get his attention visibly, and then he was able to bounce back. So, but I almost feel like he maybe needs to go out for a little potty break. Ready? Ozzy, come. So I'm going to sneak him out for a little pee real fast, and then we'll come back and work a little bit with his harness, which I know is the other thing we were having some challenges with. So I'm just going to give him a little break outside.